So we've got the stretch drawing there. Let's try one where we're squishing the face a little bit. And then once we're done the squish drawing, I'll show you how to do a very quick and easy rotation, doing a rear, not a rotation, but a 3/4 rear view. Now again, we're talking about the cranial mass of the character. We started off with what was the oval like this. We're going to take that shape. We're not going to change the volume of it. This is very important that you understand. You're not changing the volume. You're changing the size or the shape of it. The volume still stays the same. I shouldn't say the size, but the shape of it. Okay? It's like a balloon. When a balloon is filled with a certain amount of air that's enclosed by rubber, you can stretch it and squish it, but its volume, its overall internal volume, stays the same. So when we're taking this character and we're going to squish them down, we have to maintain that same volume. So by taking that cranial mass and turning it this way, you can squish it down, which means that all the features also have to squish as well. So on the center line coming down like this, I'm just going to push his nose down a little bit as well, and push it out that way. And because he's squishing, I'm going to push his cheeks out to the side as well, and pull the bottom of his jaw in. The brows will come down. Squint eyes on, and then take the brow to the opposite side. I'm not going to see as much of it. This part of the brow comes up, overlaps onto the side, and we have to remember that we've got a cheek coming out there as well, so that's going to overlap into the cheek that's stretched out. That side, the squint eyes there. Squish on the character's head there. Everything comes down, the nose squishes down a little bit, shoulders come up in the opposite direction. There's a complete flattening of the head. Okay. Now, if you wanted to use this in an animated sequence, there would always be an anticipation before the take. So, I'll just put these in the right order here. So our first drawing would be the character in a normal position like this. It would go down into the anticipation, and then up into the take. Get those centered over top of each other so that they're a little bit clear. Okay. So that's anticipation into an extreme. Now for the rotation, this is a quick little trick that I learned when I was working on Inspector Gadget, since we had to crank this stuff out as quickly as possible. We tried to figure out as many tricks, and it's not something that I invented myself, it's just something that I learned off of someone else. But when you've got this first head, the 3/4 front view, if you want to do a 3/4 rear view looking in the opposite direction, what you do is you take the silhouette of the character, just trace it off like this. Like that. And instead of thinking of it as a 3/4 front view, you think of it as a 3/4 rear view. So we're pretending that we're looking at the character from behind. So the nose is going to go over top of this part here. We're going to have a cheek that's over here coming down from the side of the eye. Actually, we still got to think about our perspective here, so I'm going to push that up. Right there. This is the back side of the brow. There's the ear coming down and over top. I want to show just a little bit of the inside of it there. There's the back of the head coming down. There's the opposite side of the ear, the back of the head, and I could just continue down into the back of the neck there like that. Okay, so we now have a 3/4 rear view of the character. Of course, there are adjustments that would have to be made for perspective, which is what we'll talk about next. But that gives you a general idea of how to do a quick and easy flip of the head. Now, as we know from our rotations that we're doing right now, if we take this same head here and go back to the basic structure of it, we have a center line that's coming right down through the character's head that the character is going to rotate on. And what we're actually doing is we're building a space or a shape out from the character's face that could be looked at as being a box like this, a rectangular box that's extending back and attaching onto the character's head. Now, as we rotate this character's head, just the same way that we did in our last class, using the basic structure and just rotating it around, now we're dealing with something that is actually sticking out from that form, which has to rotate in space. So just the same as the head shape rotates in space on an ellipse, we have to do the exact same thing with this shape here. We have to create an ellipse for that thing to rotate on. So if we were to take, say, the center point right here, down the center of the nose, the cross contour or the center line, and take and place that inside of an ellipse. It's really close to the horizon line, so it's almost going to be a flat line. The bottom one here will be in a slightly more open ellipse. It's going to rotate out and around like this. We can use the same theory that we used in our last head rotations to figure out where this nose is going to be in any position in a 3/4 rear view or a 3/4 front view. So down the central axis line, actually I've taken this too far. That's about the extent that it'll go over there. So there's the ellipse right there. If that's the 3/4 front view, there's the center position. Over here would be the 3/4 view looking to that side. Then in perspective, all we have to do is take to the vanishing point right here, draw that through to that key point, and on the ellipse that tells us where the center line of the nose is going to be on the opposite side. So if I was to draw the 3/4 rear view looking back this way to the right, I would use that point right there as my key position for the center line, like that. And I'm building the box down so that the front part of the nose is like that. Build this all down so you can see how the angle that's right here is coming up, and now it's going down into the ellipse. It's like a pie plate that's there. And then the same thing with this side over here. This side is going to be working down to this point, so we'll actually see a little bit of the top of the nose right there. So by erasing this one on this side, and I'll get a better idea of the proper proportion of that nose going in the opposite direction. Let me just darken this in so you can see it. Here's the cranial mass right there. Here's the neck. And here's the nose. The basic shape that's right there. So now if I fill this in with the proper shape, based on what we're using right here, I know that the bulb of the nose is going to be coming up like this. You can see the curvature of it. Curvature is going this way, and on the front of the nose it's going like that, so it's wrapping up and around. So on this side here it's going to wrap this way, down like that. The peak of the nose is right there. It comes down, bottom, and then back up. And the curvature right here is going to be shown right there on that side. So in proper perspective, we can see that the nose is quite a bit smaller because it's receding away from us. Now this is important because later on when you guys go to do your head rotations in animation, you get to pick any type of a character that you want. It's off of the template that we started on this last class, but you're going to have to build shapes on top of it. So as soon as you start sticking things out, all of a sudden they've got to sweep around and they have to work in perspective. So if you use this system here, which is great for a model sheet, really quick and easy for a model sheet, this will not work for a rotation in three-dimensional space. Because what will happen is the head will rotate, but the nose will also remain the same size all the way around, and there won't be a sense of receding distance. Okay? So we want to be able to incorporate this theory, which is the backbone of everything that we've been talking about up until this point, the perspective thing. The further something is away from you, the smaller it gets. This is it right in practice right now. Okay, so be very, very careful when you're doing this that you remember that theory. I know it sounds like I'm harping on it, but a lot of people will forget about it. Okay? Second years are doing it non-stop right now. They just handed in their baseball batter pitcher exercise with their model sheets, and I'm just shaking my head at them. I don't understand what's going on with them. They're just losing all this stuff completely. So be very, very careful that you try and maintain all this information in your head as much as possible. Okay, and then from here it's just a matter of building all this stuff on. The same thing applies, like when I'm drawing the ears here, I'm just sort of faking them in right now. But the same theory applies to when you're doing ears, that you have to work them out in perspective as well. They have to be working to an ellipse that's up on top here, so that theoretically, in proper perspective, this ear should be higher than this ear because this is going off to a vanishing point that's off on the side of the paper over here. Okay, everything is working across this way. As you're drawing your characters for your model sheets or whatever, it might be helpful just to do something like this. Just throw down a quick little grid like that that's going off to a vanishing point, just so you can double check for yourself and make sure that everything is going to the proper vanishing point. Same thing with this one here, just very, very lightly. Just drop down lines like this, and that way you can double check to make sure. Okay, in this drawing here, I would have said that that wasn't too bad, but this ear really should come up just a little bit more.